1, 2, 3, action.
So, there's a lot of tragic figures in the books we read, and so, like, one of these tragic figures is Lenny, because Lenny is, like, there's something wrong with him, but he's really big, but he's very dumb, so he does a lot of stupid things.
Wow, very good. Where you guys going?
So I read Into the Wild, and the tragic figure in there, at least one of them would be Chris
McCandless.
McCandless, yeah. Because he just kind of left without telling anyone. Like he had a good life, or like his life was just starting pretty much because he just got out of college, and then he just kind of left and without telling his family, and that's kind of like, you know, it's kind of messed up.
Very good. Mercifully, the camera didn't catch that.
Okay, so another character from another tragic figure from Into the Wild was one of the people he came into contact with, which was Ron Franz.
Yeah.
And Ron had lost his wife and his child before he met Chris, and he had basically given up on life. And then he met Chris, and he started to interact with people again. He started to leave his apartment, which he almost never did. And he before Chris left for the last time to go to Alaska, because he dies in Alaska, Ron asked to adopt him, and then Chris just leaves, and Ron finds out that he dies later, and he gives up on life again. It's like the same thing keeps happening to him. So it's pretty much everyone Chris comes into contact with becomes a tragic figure too.
So he causes, by his leaving Ron France, he causes Ron to suffer. Very good. No, that's an excellent choice. Anybody else want to point out any tragic figures that are in any of the books? All right. Even in, all right, of Mice and Men, does anybody know about Candy, the old man Candy? All right.
Candy could also be considered a tragic figure because in the book he has a dog that's a lot like him, old and to the point where like he's pretty much just getting in the way now. But in the book I have it marked around page 50. Some of the other guys that work on the ranch with Candy tell him to just put the dog out of his misery and just shoot him out back. But Candy doesn't, he can't do it. He emotionally couldn't do it. So Carlson gets his gun and takes Candy out back. Later in the book, when he's talking to George, he tells George that he should have done it himself, which I think kind of foreshadows the end.
Oh, excellent.
Where George has to make the decision to shoot Lenny for his own good, just to try and save him.
Very good. That's excellent. That you pointed out this foreshadowing. All right. All right. Tell me about it. All right. It's some Mice and Men.
Yes.
All right. Tell me an example of somebody suffering in there.
Oh, like Curleys Wife suffered, and multiple dogs. I remember one of the passages. They said they killed, they drowned 4 of the dogs, and they killed 9 of them. And then when Curly's wife, she said in page 89, Curly's wife didn't actually like Curly, and I'm assuming she actually liked Lenny. So when Lenny she was trying to interact, touching and stuff. So when Lenny touched her hair, it was soft, and I guess she wasn't like prepared for that. So she wanted him to let go, but he didn't want to. So like he grabbed her neck, and then she unfortunately died.
Wow. Let me go back to the dogs. Okay. Why did they drown? Why would they drown half the dogs and keep half?
They didn't have enough food, like enough food for the dogs, so they had to like, I guess, kill them instead of giving it away.
Interesting. Do we do that in society?
Yes. Are you talking about dogs or people?
Sacrifice half the people so the other half can thrive.
That's what Thanos did.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, I would argue they do that with students. That half the students are given an opportunity where they can succeed and go to college, and half the students it's survival. All right, even here at Spaybury. All right, you go in a class where there's, you know what I'm talking about or no? Sure. All right, and then half the class it looks like everybody's not college bound, and then the other half the class. That ain't so, all right? So that's why I thought of with the dogs. Half the dogs can survive, half the men in the book can survive, and then half cannot. That's the system, right? That in order for some of the people or some of the animals or some of the to survive, half don't, so half do, you know? So that's kind of, Steinbeck throws that in there as a symbol, so all right. Anybody else? You want to move on to question number 2?
Sure.
Who's going to read number 2? Question.
So question number 2 is, how do these tragic figures cause others to suffer? And give specific examples. So one example that I have from my submit is how Lenny causes George to suffer a lot. Like on page 7, George says that I could get along so easy and so nice if I didn't have you on my tail. I could be so easy and maybe have a girl. Because George sacrifices so much to help Lenny and help Lenny survive. And then he even goes to the point where George, in the very end, has to kill Lenny, not only for Lenny's good, but to save George too. So he's just, George is just, he has to kill his best friend because of the things that Lenny has done to cause George to suffer.
All right, let me ask. Could he have let him live? Could they have run away?
They could have, but they just, they had so many people after them at the time. Curly wanted to shoot him really bad, and lynch him.
To build on that, I think the reason why George decided to just end their whole going from farm to farm working until something happens there was because I don't think it says in the book that Lenny's never killed a person before, so I think there was like a whole new like thing. B, I don't think George could have handled something else happening to Lenny. I think that with Lenny realizing that he done this really bad thing, but really not like understanding how bad it was, I don't think it could have like done. I don't think George could handle like having Lenny do something like that again. So I think that's why he decided to just shoot Lenny after in the end of the book, because I don't think he could have handled like going from place to place, doing all this harm to people, and then just going somewhere else and realizing he'll probably end up doing it again. So that's why he probably just.
Oh, very good. Very good. How about in Into the Wild?
So like when Chris leaves, his parents didn't know, so they kind of started worrying. They didn't know where he was, and they asked like a bunch of people to look for him. And then eventually, I think it was like a week after he left, they made like a search party or something like that. But like it kind of affected them because that's like kind of you leaving and not telling anybody, and then like your parents don't know what to do, and like all your friends don't know what to do. Even if you think they don't care, they probably do, and they like rely on you for something, or at least someone does. So like when he kind of left without warning, it's kind of like taking a block out of a tower,
Oh yeah. Oh no.
and like it's less stable, but it might still be standing.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
So, again with Ron Franz is the tragic figure that I talked about earlier. In the book, it says that Chris probably felt relieved that he had like left the just interaction with people to go back on his way of like just wandering around everywhere, and I had a point. It's a good one. It's a good one too. And just like he did that with everybody that he met, and like I said earlier, everyone that he came into contact with before he died could be considered a tragic hero, tragic figure, because he was in their lives for a little bit, and they like wanted to be friends with him and like make him stay, but in the end he just ended up leaving. And yeah, it was, in my opinion, it was selfish, even though he was like living his life and doing what he wanted to do, but you can't run away from people your whole life. But he kept doing that, and it said somewhere that he was thinking about maybe like staying in one place for longer, like getting an actual job, but he died before he could do that. So everybody in the book was just really
Very good. We'll say closing comments. Closing comments. All right. You can say anything about any of the characters.
Can I answer another question?
Oh, for number 2, like
Basically, I feel like Lenny caused George to suffer because Lenny doesn't know the difference between wrong from right, and it's like carrying a baby on your shoulder, like on your back, and so George had to make himself responsible for himself and Lenny, and he had to mature at a really young age in order to help Lenny survive.
all right. Give them a hand.